Hi, seventh graders, and welcome to lesson 10.5. The goal today is to be able to calculate the volume of a cylinder. Be sure that you have your notes open to lesson 10.5 and that you have a calculator and something to write with. Let's see if we can answer the question on the left. What is the volume of a cylinder and how do we find it? First, what is it? Well, volume is talking about the inside of a cylinder. It's the number of cubic units that fills up the inside of any object that is in the shape of a cylinder. So by cubic units, that could be inches cubed, centimeters cubed, feet cubed. So imagine little tiny cubes filling up the inside of a cylinder. That's what it is. So then how do we find it? Well, let's imagine a cylinder. You see this cylinder is, let's say, 4 inches high, and it has a radius of 3 inches. Well, if we figure out the area of the base, which is a circle, and we know how to find the area of a circle, if we figure out how many cubic or how many units cubed, inches cubed, fill up the base, the bottom, then what we can do is we can multiply that amount by how high we stack them. So imagine if we knew how many filled up this bottom base right here. Let's say it was 100. And then if we had that 100 stacked 4 high, that would be 400. So we're just finding the area of the base and then multiplying that by the height because that's how many times it's stacked up. So to find the volume of a cylinder, go ahead and write down the formula. The volume of a cylinder is the area of the base, which is a circle, and then you multiply that by the height, which is how many times that base is stacked up on top of itself. So when I see volume, the big B is representing the area of the base. And then I'm multiplying that by the height. So that's the formula we're going to write down. And because we're talking about how many cubic units are inside of a cylinder, we always measure volume in units cubed. So we're going to put a little 3 because a cube has 3 dimensions: length, width, and height. Okay, so this is how we find it, and that's what it is. Now let's take a look at some examples where we're going to use the formula. Okay, our first example is about a container that holds tennis balls. And if you've ever seen one of these, it is in the shape of a cylinder. So I'm giving you 2 formulas on the left: area of a circle and volume. Because for the volume formula, the big base represents the area of a circle, we need both formulas. So we're asked here to find the volume of the can of tennis balls. So let's start off by writing our volume formula. Volume equals big base times height, and that B stands for area of the base. And I know that the base, every cylinder has 2 bases, top and bottom, and they're circles, aren't they? So the big B stands for the area of the base, which is a circle. So we're going to use the area formula, and that is pi times the radius squared. That's the area of the base, and then we want to multiply that by the height. So I'm just kind of breaking down the formula for you. So this part right here is the area of the base, which is a circle. We figure out how many units cubed we have in there, and then we're going to multiply that by the height of the cylinder. Okay, so let's try this. We have pi times, now the radius, we have to look at the can of tennis balls. It looks like 3 inches is all the way across, and radius is only halfway across. So we're going to want to divide this by 2, and that's going to give us a radius of 1.5 inches. So I'm going to use a times sign here because my radius is a decimal. 1.5, and that's squared. And then I want to multiply that by the height, and we can see that the height is 9.4. So we're just going to use our calculator, typing in 3.14 times 1.5 squared times 9.4. And when you do that in your calculator, you'll get 66.411. And remember, this is how many cubic inches. It's how many little tiny cubes that are 1 inch by 1 inch by 1 inch that fill up, well, that's not a very good picture, but you get my drift, that fill up the interior of a tennis ball can. So volume equals right here. All right, let's give another one a try. Here we're asked to find the volume of each paint can. And then we have a second part. How much more paint does the larger container hold? So we can see the larger container is obviously going to hold more paint, but how much more? So that's our part 2. So let's first begin by finding the volume of both of the paint cans. So the one on the left, volume equals area of the base times the height. So the base is a circle. So I got to be sure that when I'm finding the area of the base that I'm using the area formula for a circle, because a cylinder has a base on the top and on the bottom, right? And they're circles, aren't they? Okay, so let's find that area of the base. That's pi times radius, which is 3, squared. Now that's the area of the base. That's the area of the circular base. And now I want to multiply that by the height. And we can see that the height right here of the paint can is 7.5. So using your calculator to multiply 3.14 times 3 squared times 7.5, this would be a volume that's equal to 211.95. And remember the units would be inches cubed. So there's the volume here of the large paint can. Now let's do the same thing with the small paint can. So volume equals, remember big B means area of the base times the height. So again, I want to use that circle area formula. So pi times radius squared, radius is 2, and I want to multiply that by the height. And here the height of the paint can is 5 inches. Got a height of 5 inches. So we'll use our calculator. Pi times 2 squared times 5. And calculator says that the volume is only 62.8, and that's inches cubed. A lot smaller. We'll see the radius is smaller, but also the height is also smaller. So the whole thing's a lot smaller. So when we're asked how much more paint does the larger container hold, we're going to use subtraction. I bet that you guessed that. We want to subtract to figure out how much more. So we're going to take 211.95, because that's our bigger volume, and subtract the smaller one. And when we do that, the calculator tells us 149.15 inches cubed. So this right here would be how much more. I could just write more. That's how much more paint is going to be in the larger container. So quite a bit of paint. Okay, so here we looked at finding volume of 2 different cylinders where the radius was given. The last example, we had the diameter given. We found the volume 3 times. Okay, on number 3, it says which expression can be used to determine the exact volume of the cylinder. We're given a cylinder here, but notice it's laying on its side. So we have the base right here and another base at the bottom, right? And the height is now, because it's laying down, we see the height is 6 centimeters. It looks like it's, the long way there. That's the height still. Okay, now you look at all the answer choices and they're all given in terms of pi. So these are going to be exact volumes because we're not rounding pi to 3.14. So let's start off by finding volume by writing our volume formula. Volume equals big base times the height, area of the base times the height. Okay, so if I want to find area of the base, since the base is a circle, I need the area of a circle. And so that would be pi times the radius squared. Well, if the diameter that's shown here is 8, that means the radius halfway across the circle would be 4. So that would be 4 squared. And then, of course, we would multiply by the height, and the height is 6 centimeters. Remember, it's laying on its side. Okay, so let's simplify this a little bit. We know that 4 to the second power is 16. So this could be written as pi times 16 times 6. And now because of, we're getting closer, look at our answer choices. Because of the commutative property of multiplication, I can take the pi and the 16 and I can flip them around and I get this, it means the same thing. 16 times pi or pi times 16. So I could write it as 16 times pi. And then don't forget that we have to multiply that by the height. Oops. And the height is 6. So now look at your answer choices. Do you see this answer as one of your answer choices? 16 times pi times 6. Yeah, absolutely. Answer choice C. The 16 times pi is the area of the base, and then they multiplied that by the height. So this is your big base times the height. And there's the answer. Now that would be the exact volume because we leave it in terms of pi. We're not multiplying it by 3.14 because as soon as you do that, then it becomes a rounded answer because pi is an irrational number and we round it to 3.14. On number 4, we have a tank of water and the tank is in the shape of a cylinder, but you notice here that it's only half full. Use my pen here. It's only half full. So I'm asking you to find the volume of the tank when it's half full. Now, do we have a formula to find the volume of something that's only half full? No, but we do have a formula to find the volume of the entire tank. So we've got to start there. So let's start by finding the volume of the entire tank. We need the area of the base times the height. And remember, the base area is a circle. So I'm going to be finding the area of a circle. So pi times radius squared. Now I can see that this 10 inches here represents the distance across the circular base. Remember this, see this tank is laying on its side. But I only want radius. So radius would just be halfway, and that would be 5. So pi times radius squared. Okay, that's the area of the base, and then I don't want to forget, I want to multiply that by the height. And because it's laying on its side, the height here is 16 inches. Okay, so let's go ahead and multiply 3.14 times 5 squared times 16 in the calculator. And calculator should give you, let's see here, volume equals 1,256. That's the volume of the entire tank. But what do we know about the tank? It's only half full. So if it's only half full and we want the volume of just half of it, what could we do? Well, I bet you know we could divide it by 2, absolutely. Or I could figure out what is half of the entire volume. Either one of these methods is going to work. So you just have to decide what works best for you. Do you like to divide by 2 since it's only half full? Or do you want to multiply by half since it's half of the volume? Your choice. But whatever way you do it, you're going to get a volume of 628 cubic inches, so inches cubed. And that would be the volume when the tank is half full. Okay, get ready for the last one, number 5. Here we go. This is kind of a challenging one. Notice with this one, we're asked to find the height of the cylinder. And you can see that the height is unknown. It's got a little question mark. We don't know what the height is. We're going to find it. We're given the volume, though. We're given the radius, but we need to figure out the height. So we're going to have to kind of undo the volume formula, aren't we? So if we're talking about volume, let's start out by writing the volume formula. And then we're going to fill in everything that we know. So it's going to be really important that we show our work because we're going to end up with a pretty complicated looking equation. Okay, so volume equals base times height. Now let's write down what we know. We know that the volume is 904.32 centimeters. Okay, then I want you just to copy down the equal sign. Okay, then next I'm going to put the area of the big base. Can I figure that out? Yeah, the base is a circle. And I know the radius is 6. So to find the area of the big base, it would be pi times radius squared. And the radius is 6. So pi times 6 squared. That's the area of the base. Now next comes the height. So we want to multiply by the height. But do we know what the height is? No, we don't. So we're just going to write h for height. So we have an unknown value here. Changing color real quick so you can follow what I'm doing. Okay, I'm going to put a little box around this height because this is what I want to find. Now, if we had multiple choices, we could plug them in for the height and we could guess and check and see which one gives us the volume we're looking for. But we don't have any multiple choices. So I'm going to solve an equation. But take a look at the numbers here. Is there anywhere where you can simplify? Do you notice right here? Could you change this into a number? So couldn't we in our calculator take 3.14 and multiply it by 6 squared to change that to a number? Absolutely. Let's go ahead and do that. And if we do that, 3.14 times 6 squared, we're going to get 113.04. And then I'm going to copy down times the height equals, and then over here we still have that same volume of 904.32. So all I did here was I just changed this part right here into one number. I just simplified. Now I have an equation that only has one unknown value, the h, the height. So let's solve the equation. Let's undo. Okay, if the height times 113.04 equals 904.32, how can I go backward to get the height? I bet you guessed it, division, absolutely. Think about if I'm solving this equation, the opposite of multiplication is to divide. So to undo the 113.04, we would divide. That would give us 1h, that would give us our height. But I got to do the same thing over here. It's just a one-step equation. I'm going to divide it. And then if I divide those numbers in the calculator, I get 8. 8 is the height. So this unknown height right here is 8 centimeters. So height equals 8 centimeters. Remember, that's just length. So it's just centimeters. It's measured in just centimeters, just like a tape measure would have just the 8 centimeters on it. So this is how I can work backward, but notice how it's really important that we show our work. Okay, let's go ahead to our summary. Got a picture of volume up there. Remember, it's cubic units, units cubed. How many cubic units fill up the space inside of a cylinder? So volume is the number of cubic units inside of a cylinder. We're writing down what volume is again. And the volume formula for a cylinder is volume equals big B times H. The big B represented area of the base, and then we multiply that by the height. Remember, the bases of a cylinder are circles, so we use our circle formula for area of the base. So go ahead and pause the video so you have a chance to write down your summary, and then have fun practicing finding volume of cylinders. Have a great day.